The smell of disinfectant came in waves, sharp and synthetic under the cold, humming lights. I remember standing in that corridor, the blue vinyl floor sticky beneath my shoes, the shuffling of nurses in pale uniforms behind me. My mother's voice echoed barely disguised exasperation beneath a scowl. "Drawings can't pay for food, Noah," she snapped, her arms folded, her wedding rings glinting under the fluorescent bulbs. "You're 22. You need to think about your future, your actual future." Dad, quiet except for the soreness in his eyes, tried to meet my gaze with a forced, thin smile. I saw the twinge of doubt there, the helpless worry. "I will," I replied, swallowing the shake in my voice. If you'd listen, architecture isn't some fantasy. People get hired, people build real things. I want to show you what I've made." Mum cut me off, her words sharp as glass in my chest. "You sit in your little room drawing these towers in the sky. You're wasting your time, Noah. You think anyone in this family ever got anything hand-delivered? We work, we get credentials, commerce, law. Jobs that last." Through the glass door, I glimpsed my grandmother, small and sunken in her bed, IV in her arm. Everything felt soft-edged and slanted, like some part of me was floating, ungrounded. I forced myself to speak. "I got into the University of Sydney," I said, working moisture into my lips. "I want to study architecture. The words ended as she barked out a laugh, sharp and loud. My sister Leanne paced a few steps away, her phone up to her ear. She gave me a pitying look, shaking her head. As she walked past, I heard her whisper, "Just let it go, Noah." Heart pounding, I looked at Dad's. His hand twitched like he wanted to touch my shoulder, but he just stared at the linoleum as if it might offer advice. That was it. Years of sketchpads under my mattress, of tracing the outlines of roofs on the train, and they still saw a child pretending with blocks. I left before the tears showed, mumbling an excuse, shoving the acceptance letter deeper in my back pocket. That was the last time I argued with them about it. Instead, I worked 2 jobs, poured coffees at dawn in Sarai Hills in a haze of caffeinated dread, and loaded crates in the evenings for a delivery company while staring, exhausted, at half-finished assignments propped on my knees in the break room. Every attempt to show my parents what I was designing, piercing, steel-lined libraries, sun-stippled courtyards blooming with wattle, was met with the same silent dismissal on their faces. They didn't come to my graduation. When I walked with a fluttering program in my chest pocket and my mortarboard trying to slip off my head, the morning cold biting at my shins, I imagined them watching with folded arms from the back, unimpressed. I stopped coming home after that. For years I scraped by, sending home birthday cards, answering texts every now and then, my answers always thin on details, always saying it's going fine, busy, working late. I moved into a single room in a Redfern terrace, the wallpaper curled and smelling of old rain, and filled it with sketches taped to peeling plaster. Every rejection from a firm strung like a slap. Sometimes I went to interviews with only 2 hours of sleep, ill-fitting suit jacket pressed over shirts still stained with espresso. "A competitive field," they always said, or "Your designs are very ambitious, Noah, not what Sydney is looking for right now." I remember clutching my folio outside Callahan and Ross, one of the city's big names, watching models in glass cases through the lobby window. I counted coins for a bus ride and thought, what if they're right? What if you'll always be that useless dreamer? Walking along Crown Street that evening, my head clouded by exhaustion and humiliation, I found myself in Hyde Park. I sat by the pond, sketchbook in my lap, and made a vow to nobody in particular. Even if every door stayed closed, I'd draw for myself. I'd build for myself. I'd prove, if only to that terrified, stubborn kid in the hospital hallway, that I could. Years passed, I patched together small jobs. A teacher at the TAFE campus brought me in to help with a community parklet. A friend introduced me to an eccentric developer who wanted a cafe shaped like a folded origami crane at Milson's Point. I learned to hustle, to smile at people who frowned at my name, to accept more no's than yeses and turn each setback into a new sketch, a new attempt. Late nights I'd fall asleep at my drafting table with pencil shavings pressed into my cheek, dreams crowded with glass wings and curved shadow. Sometimes, walking over the harbour bridge at dawn, I'd look at the skyline, rising and brutal and beautiful, and whisper, "Someday." It was on a rain-soaked morning when I got the email that changed everything. The City Council wanted to revamp an old public library in Darlinghurst. They were looking for fresh proposals. The grant was minor, a drop in the city's bucket, but my friend said, "Submit, Noah." What's one more no? I spent a month on it, sleepless, anxious, my room filled with models carved from cardboard and foam. I thought about the hospital corridor. I thought about Mum and Dad and their world of ledgers and lines, and I poured everything into one building, my hope, my hunger for proof that I could make something real. 3 months of waiting, then a phone call I barely dared answer. We loved it, the planner said. You made it feel like sunlight could flow through the walls. When can you come in? Construction took a year. Through paperwork and late-night diagram edits, I watched the library on Crown Street slowly emerge from scaffolding, a shell of white brick, arched windows, native plants washing down the steps. I went every week pretending to inspect the place but just memorizing how it grew, real, impossible, indisputable. Far more requests followed, a housing development in Marrickville, a riverside promenade in Parramatta. And impossibly, submission to help restore the old Capitol Theatre's facade. I found myself doing radio interviews, my name appearing a few times in the paper, then more, as if the city had been waiting for someone just foolish enough to try things differently. It was Leanne's idea that I come home. 10 years had gone by since that corridor argument. Our parents had moved to a new weatherboard in suburban Strathfield. We're having a family lunch, she said on the phone, cautious and formal. Mum's invited everyone, even you. That morning I put on a clean shirt, combed my hair with hands that shook. I looked at my face in the mirror. There was a line across my nose that I never used to have, shadows at my jaw. I zipped up my bag and on a last-minute decision, slipped in a folded schematic of the Darlinghurst Library. The new house was smaller. The roses along the path thrived in the winter sun, petals tight and blushing pink. Mum answered, her mouth a hard, straight line. Noah, she said, just my name, no warmth but no rejection either. Dad showed, hair thinner and whiter, and squeezed my hand quick and awkward. I saw Leanne in the kitchen, her own daughter clinging to her hip. Lunch was stilted. My uncles made small talk about tax bills and property prices. Someone brought up footy and Mum tossed a salad with tense hands. I ate with my head down until Dad cleared his throat. Your work's in the paper, Noah, he said suddenly. He sounded proud almost, but uncertain how to land it. They're saying you did the new library in Darlinghurst. That's you, isn't it? I nodded. Mum set her tongs down hard. Well, you never said, she muttered. Didn't think you'd be interested, I replied softly, feeling an old defiance rekindling. You always said it was a fantasy. The room went quiet, cutlery scraping on plates. My uncle shook his head. Crazy they let people out of uni and put them in charge of real buildings, eh? I felt my heart spike, the old shame flickering hot in my cheeks. Before I could reply, Leanne cut in, her voice gentle but brave. Why don't we go see it, she offered. Mum, it's only 20 minutes. We could drive. I think it's brilliant. We should see it all together. I don't think, Mum began, but Dad nodded, surprising all of us. Let's do it. We piled into the car, the familiar discomfort of family closeness making me small in the back seat. I caught my reflection in the window, old scars, new confidence. The library rose up from the footpath like something out of my dreams. In the afternoon light, its white brick glowed pale gold. Native grass fluttered along the steps, and the curved glass at the entry caught the blue of the sky. Construction fences were long gone. A group of children tumbled across the courtyard, their laughter tumbling off the pavers. We stepped inside. Light spilled through floor-to-ceiling archways, scattering soft amber over the reclaimed timber floors. High above, sculpted acoustic panels twisted in gentle geometric waves, diffusing the noise, the shadow patterns echoing the branches of the eucalypts planted outside. There were people everywhere, mothers reading to toddlers, old men flipping through newspapers, teenagers tapping away on laptops. A librarian glided up, cheerful. Welcome, oh, isn't it lovely today? She smiled at me knowingly. You must be Noah, we see you sometimes, don't we? Everybody loves what you've done. The council wants to expand this, did you hear? I glanced sidelong at my mother. She was silent, lips pressed together. Dad stood a little taller, peering up at the curve of the ceiling. We wandered into the main reading area. Sunlight streamed over woolen chairs and long, angular tables set beneath skylights. The air smelled faintly of paper, polished wood and eucalyptus. None of them spoke. Then Leanne's daughter, small and stubborn, looked up at me and asked, Uncle Noah, did you build this one? I felt breathless at that simple, honest question. I crouched beside her. I did, I said, voice low. What do you think? She grinned, dimples deepening. It's like a storybook castle. Mum finally broke her silence. Nice paint job, she muttered. But there was a different tone hiding behind it. We stood in front of a wall lined with old photographs, the building before crumbling and grey, now remade full of life. The plaque at the entry had my name. I saw Dad linger there, tracing my name with a rough, trembling finger. Outside, the city pulsed, the library an island of calm among the honking cars and tram bells. On the steps, Mum brushed dust from her skirt. "It's very impressive, Noah," she said, not quite looking at me. "I suppose I didn't understand what you were doing. I thought we just wanted you to be safe, have a path." "Something certain." Dad stepped close, giving my shoulder a solid squeeze. "You did good, mate." For a second, I saw worry flash in Mum's eyes, fear that admitting my success meant she'd been wrong all along. She looked as if she was searching for words, then finally she touched my elbow very briefly. "I'm glad you didn't listen to me," she said, voice tiny, and for the first time I believed her. After they drove off, I sat on the library steps and watched dusk spill over the city. There were things that would never be perfect between us, but something had shifted, heavy and slow, like the first bend of glass in heat. Most nights now I walk by the library after dinner. There's always someone bathed in that golden light, reading, laughing, arguing about weekend plans. Sometimes the city I love feels as if it's breathing my designs, even if nobody knows the belief it took to get here. I think back to that hospital corridor, the twin aches of fear and defiance knotting in my chest. I think of all the people who called my dream ridiculous. Now, standing here hearing my name whispered as part of something lasting, I allow myself, at last, a small, private smile. I built something real, something that matters, and for once, everywhere I look I belong.